Have you heard the latest news? A 19-year-old youngest patient to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease in Beijing, China. So, this patient was first noted to be a little forgetful, not being able to focus in school, and later on, the symptoms just got worse. And then, when they worked up the patient, it was known that she or he may have Alzheimer's disease. Gene sequencing and family history was unremarkable, but this patient was eventually diagnosed as the youngest ever patient with Alzheimer's disease. So now we have to discuss how can we improve our brain health and the 5 tips, simple steps that we can actually do to avoid getting Alzheimer's disease, especially if you have a strong family history of developing Alzheimer's disease. So, we have to review first what are the common problems that our brain have, regardless if it's Alzheimer's, just dementia, old age, stroke, and many others. It's usually under these categories. There's inflammation going on, swelling, atrophy or shrinkage, there's ischemia or decreased blood supply, and also there's protein deposits. It can be in the form of Lewy bodies, amyloid deposits, and many other types of proteins, but generally these protein deposits, as early as now, I want to tell you that it's not related to your protein intake. Instead, it might be related to your intake of foods that are actually very, very high in insulin response, because it is the insulin, an anabolic hormone, that will actually dictate your body to make these misfolded or unnecessary protein deposits in the brain, causing damage, causing problems when it comes to its function. So now we will have to go through with this 5 simple tips, steps to avoid Alzheimer's disease. And number one, it may be obvious and others are already doing it, but for those who are not yet into it, I hope this one is a good enough motivation for you to start doing exercise. So any form of physical activity, especially the ones moving large muscle group in your body, repetitive movements of those large muscle group can actually induce brain-derived natriuretic tide. And that one is directly linked to better brain health, better cognitive function, and overall decreased risk of developing dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So when it comes to research, cardio exercises, running, jogging, biking can all be good for your heart and for your brain. But do you know what is even better when it comes to your brain? It's actually weightlifting, resistance training. Those are far better when it comes to your brain health. So, if you can't let go of your cardio exercises, maybe you can just mix and match, maybe 2 to 3 times a week cardio exercises, and you can just do weightlifting around 2 to 4 times a week to mix that up. That one will be good for your heart and also will be good for your brain. And when it comes to your heart, you also don't need to overdo it. Your age deducted by 180, then that's your target heart rate when you go on exercise. So, say for example, if you're 50 years old, so minus 180, so don't go over 130 BPM when you are doing your cardio exercises. Yoga is also good, Pilates, and many other forms of exercise. So that's number one. Number two would be to limit your stress. You don't need to fully eliminate your stress, because no stress can also lead into brain atrophy, and we don't want that. So we just want you to limit your stress. Do not fully eliminate it. Maybe you can time it. You can be choosy, you can be selective when it comes to what kind of stress really you want to have. Say, for example, for me, I want all of my stresses, all of my problems, all of my major to do list all in the morning, and maximum around 1 o'clock. I should be done by all of those heavy mental stresses in my day. So by the time that it's already 1 or 2, I'm already still working, but mostly just the more relaxing kind, not so tedious kind of stress. And we have to time it, especially if we have this tendency to overthink, to ruminate. Those are also stress, and that can be chronic stress that's not good for your health at all. So, what you need to do is to time it. If you can't help yourself, you keep on ruminating, you keep on thinking negatively, then try to listen to it only for a period of time and not all throughout the day. Like at maximum by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you shouldn't be listening to that. Instead, you can just listen to music or talk to your loved ones or just think positive thoughts instead. That way, limiting your stress can also do so much when it comes to improving your brain health. So that's number two. And now we move on to our number three. And our third would be to lower sugar intake in all forms possible. Not just lower your white sugar, brown sugar, honey, cocoa sugar, muscovado, and all of those other sweeteners, but also lower your total carbohydrate intake, especially those high in starch like grains, like wheat, like flour, and potatoes. You can limit that, your rice, corn, all of those are actually going to still become glucose in our system. And that is why even among the blue zone, there are countries or areas there that have higher number of centenarians, but they also have higher numbers of dementia. And it's usually related to too much sugar, especially grain intake, because now dementia or Alzheimer's disease is now considered to be type 3 diabetes or diabetes in the brain, meaning our body only has a finite amount of sugar that it can tolerate. Its tolerance is not unlimited, it's not infinite. So we have to be conscious if we find ourselves now looking for sugar, always trying to reach that sugar high, cannot function after 2 or 3 hours after eating because you need to eat again, you need to fill in back the glucose that you lost, then you might be glucose dependent and sugar dependent already. And with that kind of sugar dependency, those are actually already a start of possible damage in your brain. So, what to do about it? Do you need to slowly remove sugar or you remove it cold turkey, remove it altogether? Actually, when it's already a sugar addiction, you can just remove it altogether. Remove sugar in your life once and for all because it's just like alcohol, it's just like illicit drugs, it's just like chain smoking. You cannot properly wean yourself from it if it's slowly. It's abstinence. It's only abstinence that can work. And that's the same thing with sugar, the unknown but most highly addicting form of chemical in the world right now. It's just that we are not being bothered by it simply because it is considered legal. So be careful because the most addicting form of chemical is a legal one and being promoted everywhere with all of these commercials and marketing that's going on in our social media and everywhere around us. So lower your sugar intake if you cannot fully remove it in your life. So that's number three. And now we move on to number four, our favorite way to improve our brain health, and that is having new experience. So we have to expose ourselves to new environments. We have to make sure that we break our routine from time to time. Doing so will actually make your brain more alert, more strategic. It's like an exercise for it, and exposing it to new environment, and exposing yourself outside your comfort zone may of course be a little discomfort for you, but that's actually what your brain needs in order for it to reinvent itself, in order for it to re-strategize and eventually come out even better and stronger. A 1 day or 2 day break from your work may mean a 1 day or 2 day loss of income, but you just don't know. Maybe that 1 day or 2 day break might also give you that $1 million idea that who knows, you might no longer need to work after that. After you've come up with that brilliant idea that can only occur when you are exposed to a new environment. So that's the importance of having new experience. Having new experience doesn't need to be expensive. You don't need to travel across the world or intercontinental or within your country, just within your neighborhood or even in a little corner in your house that you are not usually visiting. That can already be a new experience. Or going to a familiar place but with a new lens, like looking at it from a different perspective. So that one can already be considered as new environment. So this is very, very important, especially for those who are not able to go out from their home, like physically they're not able. So you can just read books, you can watch a different kind of genre when you're watching those movies. And of course, those kinds, try to make it as interactive as possible. Use your brain. Do not just watch passively, but watch actively. That way, you can still have that new experience feel, even if you are just at the comfort of your home. So that's number four. And our last but not the least tip to avoid getting Alzheimer's early on, especially for the younger ones and even for the older ones, our beloved seniors, it's not too late to prevent or even reverse Alzheimer's disease. You can do intermittent fasting. So, with intermittent fasting, you are actually addressing the five common problems in the brain. The inflammation and swelling will go down, atrophy can be prevented, your blood supply can be even improved, and those unnecessary protein deposits can actually be resorbed by your body through the process of autophagy. So just a minimum of 12 hours. You don't need to force yourself. Just do a 12-hour circadian fasting. That is eating only when the sun is up and stop eating when the sun is down. However, if you're on a graveyard shift or your work is irregular, you might be working at daytime or nighttime, then you can just do a hack on this 12-hour circadian rhythm by making sure that you are done with your last meal or your dinner for the day about 4 to 6 hours before your intended bedtime. Sleeping on an empty stomach will be better for your brain, because if you sleep on a full stomach, then all of your blood flow will just be on your stomach, on your gut, and not on your brain, where repair and all of these healing are actually must happen on a day-to-day basis. So doing intermittent fasting as little as 12 hours in a day, or you can go as 20 hours, 16 hours, depending what you can accommodate, can be good for you. When you do intermittent fasting and you pair it up with lowered sugar intake in all forms, then you will be using a lot of fats in your body, be used as fuel, as energy for your heart, and also even for your brain. So ketones is a very, very good fuel for your brain. Your brain will love ketones. You will see that you will function more. So on top of that, you can even maximize also your intake of healthy, good fats. You can have avocados, olive oil, olives, coconut, and of course we have fishes, we have salmon, all other fatty fish, grass-fed beef, grass-fed butter. If you have organic pork and chicken, those are very, very good for your brain. So that's it. I think that's the five major things that you can learn today on how to avoid Alzheimer's disease and to reverse or avoid getting all of these problems: inflammation, swelling, atrophy, blood supply, make it better, and make sure that there's no more unnecessary protein deposits by lowering your sugar intake, lowering your overall insulin load in the body. So, exercise, control your stress, avoid sugar, and of course, expose yourself to new environments. And lastly, do intermittent fasting when you can. So, if you wish to know more, these are actually outlined in our masterclass in www.lcfmasterclass.com. Right now, it's still in Filipino. But if you wish to be guided also by me, I have a telemed consultation at www.jgrtanmd.com. Thank you so much, everyone. Always remember to stick to the safe list. And of course, stay low carb so that we all stay safe. That's our five tips to avoid Alzheimer's disease. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.